welcome to another video. To this video, I'm gonna start getting the Challenger ready for a big trip. Yes, that's right, a big road trip. Stay tuned. In reality, we are going to be taking this car cross country, kinda. So Holley was kind enough to invite us to Holley Ford Fest. Yes, that's right. We're gonna go to Holley Ford Fest on the Challenger because you have to have a Ford powered vehicle to enter it. And so, you know what best to do than, my belief is, you're building a car, you're spending all this time, all this money on it, you should be able to drive it. You should actually go out and drive it. So I didn't want to tow it. I didn't want to, you know, just go to the event. I mean, I've been wanting to go to one of those events, but I wanted to take a car. So we're gonna road trip it all the way here from New Mexico to Bowling Green, Kentucky. And so there's a few things that I'm gonna be working on to get it ready. From today it's about 30 days till we have to leave, so it's not bad. I mean, there's not too much things, but a few things that I do want to get taken care of before we go. This, in all reality, funny thing, but when I drove it, you know, you get the exhaust kind of go in there because the trunk doesn't have a seal. And so I figured, well, what better way, you know, seal these big cracks with some bundle I have left over. This big hole that was here on the side, so now it's covered. I will sand it, make it look not so ugly. But besides that, so the reason it's jacked up, when we were at the drag strip and we were doing burnout, we noticed this wheel, the axle shaft is bent, so you know, it wobbles. So I got one coming. It's not going to be here today, so it'll be here in a couple days. The other thing that I wanted to check is when I did the drive shaft in the car, the Mustang drive shaft I had ordered was too short. So then I went to U-Pull and I just picked the drive shaft that was longer out of a Ford and got it. Well, I didn't really pay good attention, which I should have. It had a little bit of dings throughout the drive shaft, so other drive shafts over there in the corner, but I went ahead and got that one, measured it, took it to a drive shaft spot. I wanted them to cut it and then balance it. And so they told me off the back that they couldn't balance it because of those small dents. They weren't really big dents, but they said you have to put a new tube, retube it and balance it, which they quoted me about 600 bucks. So I was like, you know what, can you just cut it, weld it, just so I can get the car running. And that's why we went to the drag strip. I've been driving it. I didn't notice too much of a vibration with the axle shaft being bent. And well, I jacked it up the other day and I looked at the drag shaft and it's moving about half an inch up and down. So I took it off already, took it to a different drag shaft shop, and they were like, oh yeah, we'll balance it. You know, I asked them, hey, it's got some dents, you know, is that okay? And they said that they actually apply heat in certain areas. And I did notice when I got it back, for example, if this is the drive shaft, there was a kind of like a big bend on the middle and on the end. There were some heat spots where they applied like a torch and heated up. I think there was like 2 spots. But they said, you know, once they do that and then whatever, it makes it bend and they balance it. And so they got it balanced. I haven't driven the car or anything, but it's probably better than it was. So those are the 2 things that are going on underneath mechanically. I didn't want it to be a lot of vibration and, you know, either the transmission start leaking or the rear end. Since nothing's leaking, let's keep it that way. So that's the main thing. I did also start plugging in all the holes on the floorboard, just because that way, you know, air is not coming through. So I did throw these pieces of carpet, but I put plugs in all the holes. And then I'm gonna do the sound deadening. I'm gonna cut it in right up front where I made it the floorboard to the firewall. I didn't weld it because I'm going to replace that. So I'm going to just cut like a 2-inch strip and put it there so nothing goes through that crack, and some of the holes around there where the wiring goes through. So I need to do that. Put the quarter panels back inside of here just so that, you know, there's not just open. I just have them sitting there. So I'll take off the bottom seat, the back one, put those on there. I am gonna run the wire that I had already ordered for the taillights, just that way I can run it behind there. They do work, but here on the back the wiring is a little messed up, so I'm just gonna use the old sockets, because the ones that I ordered that were supposed to be replacement, they didn't really work out. So I'm just gonna cut them and splice them, but all the wiring back here is kind of chewed up, so I want to do that. And then really that's about it. Oh yeah, the bundle. So I'll sand this, make it look good. I'll probably get a universal trunk seal to put in here, and then I have a lot of bundle left over from the 67, so I'm probably gonna put a little bit here where we kind of peeled a lot of this so it looks a little nicer. Just maybe spray some primer or something. Just that spot, maybe this spot that has the holes. Everything else I don't, you know, I don't mind it. I like the patina, I guess. And then this, to cover the big holes back here, I'll sand it, maybe put a little layer of the smooth stuff so it looks nicer. I do have a bunch of, not a bunch, but I have quite a bit of clear left over from a couple projects, and so I'm gonna mix in probably just with the brush, coat it so it has like a nice coating on it. Kind of, it's not gonna protect nothing, the whole car's already rusted, but it'll probably make it look a little bit deeper, nicer color. So that's what I'm gonna be doing. A couple different things. I'm gonna let that dry, get my sander and just kind of hit it a little bit, and then this is probably gonna be a video that I shoot over a few days, because once that axle comes in, I'll shoot the you know, show you guys replacing the axle. But that's what today's gonna be, so let's get to it. Okay, so now I'm gonna replace the axle shaft here. I already took off the wheel. I do have space around this, and this is the new axle shaft that I got. They're usually gonna come like this without the studs installed, which are on the box with the bearings, and I'll show you how to install that. But take your wheel. You don't have to take the other side off unless you're doing both sides. I do have to take the caliper off so I can get the rotor off as well, so I'm going to do that as well, and then we'll go ahead and move to the center and take the differential cover. Okay, so went ahead and removed the caliper, 12mm bolts, took off the rotor, and so now I'm just gonna hit here to the center and loosen the bolts here on the differential cover. Make sure you get a drain pan to catch the oil, so that way you don't make a mess all over the floor. If you look at an old video, put it together, I'm gonna hit the threads with some thread restore just to kind of clean any of, if it has any RTV or anything in there. Same with the holes. No leaks or anything since I put it together. Now I haven't put that many miles on it, but the main thing is just to have a clean surface. Make sure your bolts are clean so that way it seats all the way, and just let that RTV kind of set up a little bit before you tighten it up all the way. That way it doesn't all kind of squeeze out. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty straightforward to do this. Just take your time. Once we get to the pin that's in there, and I'll show you in a little while, because there's a pin that kind of holds the axles. So the axles are in there. They go in, and you put a C-clip at the end. That way it doesn't go out. And there's a pin that spreads those axles and gets those C-clips kind of into like a little groove, so that way they don't just come out, because once you push the axles in, they just fall out. So you have to make sure when you turn it to take that pin out, you don't want to keep turning the rear end, because the spider gears tend to fall out unless you're replacing those. or if you're, you know, you're gonna be replacing the clutch packs and stuff. I don't know on this one with the clutch pack if they do fall out easily, but I know on others, even if they're limited slip, if you just turn the rear end without that pin, they tend, those little spider gears, they're just kind of sitting there. That pin holds them in place. They'll fall out. So just keep that in mind. Got all the bolts off. I'm gonna get a screwdriver because this is still pretty good glued on there, so I can pry it off, start getting that oil out. So I'm just gonna get this flathead and try to get it here in between. And I'll do it in a few spots. I don't want to just drive it in one area and potentially bend this cover up. So and that fluid is practically new. Like, I was thinking maybe I should reuse it. I guess it's good. Gives the rear end a good, I guess, a good flush. We did have quite a few runs at the drag strip and some burnout, so the rear end looked pretty good before. I mean, it's pretty clean. You know, there's just a little bit here on the bottom, just slightly black, but it's pretty clean. That whole cover, this whole cover is pretty clean. I mean, it probably has, I don't know, less than 1,000 miles in this thing, so. And this was an old rear end. I mean, when I put it on there, supposedly, I think it had like 100,000 miles or so, so who knows. I think the cover looked like someone had taken it off, maybe had been leaking, but you know, can't say that it was serviced good or anything like that. Didn't, you know, the axle shafts or the pinion seals not leaking or anything, so that's always a good sign. But like I said, it's just a little bit black at the bottom, which, you know, rear ends, well, you don't really clean the oil. And when I put in the oil last time, I cleaned what I could, but I didn't take the whole thing apart and clean it. So but at least it doesn't smell really bad. So sometimes when these are, you know, you got bad bearings or something, they smell really bad because that oil just gets burned up. So so now here is where that pin is going to be here in the middle. Hopefully the camera can pick it up, but I'm going to turn the rear end here. So there's a pin that goes all the way through, and it holds this clip and the gears and everything in there. And there's a little bolt right here, which is I believe it's an 8mm. And you also gotta be careful when you're tightening up this little pin back. That's not gonna be able to get a ratchet in there. Because it's just like it has threads at the end and it's a long pin, so you don't want to break that in there. because then you're gonna have a hard time to get that out. So I got the 8mm. Let's see if I can get it with the ratchet here. It's gonna be a little bit tight, but there we go. They usually have Loctite on that little bolt, so, and we'll put some blue Loctite when we put it back, so we don't want that thing falling off. Now, I'm not sure if I did a video on my Celine Mustang. I did rebuild the whole rear end on it. Maybe I didn't do a video, but this is kind of part of, if you're going to rebuild the rear end though, you don't have to take this out yet. Actually, yeah, you do, because you have to take the shafts out and then you take the caps and all that. So you still have to do this. It's a lot of work that goes into rebuilding the whole rear end though. But so that's the little bolt. You can see there's some thread locker on the threads. So once you take that out, you can see this little pin just kind of slides out. Now I'm gonna maybe turn it right here so that I'm able to see the little clip for the axle shaft there, and you can get in here and pull this out. Usually they're not stuck. This is what it is. Now this pin has a couple of flat spots. Sometimes if it gets a little stuck, get a wrench and you can pry it out. But see, at this point here is where you really don't want to be turning the rear end. So once you get that pin out, you know, don't turn your rear end. Try to avoid that, okay? So what I'm gonna do now is just push that shaft in from the outside, and it goes in about 1/2 inch. I don't know if you would be able to see it, but what happens, and I'll try to close up here with the camera, what happens is you see that little C-clip there, and now it's sticking out where I can actually get a magnet and grab it out. So once you push it in, I'm gonna go grab a magnet. Once you get a magnet, you should be able to hopefully kind of work this out. You might have to kind of spin it. But you can see there, that's the little C-clip, and when the axle is pushed out, it goes into like a little hole like this, so it doesn't let it fall out. So it's crazy that this little piece keeps your whole shaft from falling out the back. But at this point here, see if I can zoom out. And just grab a rag, but you can actually pull the shaft all the way out. And then just grab a rag, because you might have some oil on it. Something to note is, if you're gonna reuse, you know, this seal and bearing in here, try to hold the shaft as when you're pulling it out. Trying to hold the shaft here so it doesn't ride on the seal, because the teeth here can potentially cut like a little groove on the seal, you put the new one, it might start leaking. So usually when you buy a new one, it comes with the bearing and the seal, which I'll show you how to take out. But if you really don't want to do that, just be careful. This is the shaft. You can tell it's not worn out, so sometimes they have a big groove here worn out if the bearing is bad. But what I'm thinking is this rear end, you know, the car that it was in before, they either slid or something hit the wheel kind of bad and it bent the face of it, and that's why it was a little wiggly. So I'm gonna grab a tool to take the seal out and then the tool to take this bearing out, and I'll show you you can rent that tool from your local parts store. You pay for it and then you get your money back. So we can put the new one in there, and then I'll show you how to put those studs in the shaft. So this is a seal remover. Sometimes it works good, sometimes it does not. So it has the little hooks you can get on there and trying to get behind there. This seal looks like it's been on there for a long time, so it's pretty stuck, but this tool makes it pretty good to take it out. Now you're never gonna reuse the seal. Even if you use screwdriver or whatever, that's not gonna work anymore. And then we will put a little bit of RTV at the edge when we put the new one in. This tool, you cannot rent it, but I think it's like 10-15 bucks to buy one. So you can also use like a screwdriver, or maybe, you know, try to use your hammer. But when I was going to automotive school, the teacher said you never use a claw hammer in automotive. So, you know, don't buy one of these, I guess. Now this is a rear axle bearing remover set. You can rent these from the parts store or buy them. You can put like a slide hammer on this, which I don't have a slide hammer, so but you put it in there. So normally you put it in there and then tighten it, and then your slide hammer, you start banging it out. What I normally do is, I'll show you here in just a second. So I'll put this in here, and then I'll put something here to touch on the actual axle and start tightening up this knot, and that's gonna start forcing that bearing out. So I'm gonna go find something just to put here, maybe a little piece of metal, and then I'll show you taking it out. So now this is not the way to really use this tool, but like I mentioned before, I don't have a slide hammer here, and I could go rent one, but that's not gonna happen today. So pretty much I just put a couple of screws there, and that's gonna bring the bearing all the way to the edge. Once it's here at the edge, then I may have to find something else that's gonna a little bit farther out. that brought the bearing all the way out. Now I just gotta find something that's, you know, just pushes here on the edge to get it out. So make sure you get a slide hammer when you're doing this, that way you're not kind of stuck at this point. So, and really when it was here, I just went ahead and forced it and it came right out. So once it gets to this outer edge, it's a little bit bigger, so the bearing's not really stuck in there. But again, if you have a slide hammer, you don't have to worry about that. So at this point, I'm just gonna clean out here the surface and everything, or the inside edge there, and then I'm gonna get the new bearing, get it ready. Once you get everything cleaned up, you got your new bearing. I like to put a little bit of grease on the bearing itself, that way the oil should come all the way here, but I just like to do that as extra precaution. Now this is a bearing, race, and seal driver set. You can buy these or rent it. What's nice is, you know, you want to hit right the outside of the bearing. You don't want to hit the needles or the rollers. And you just want to push it in. You can use your old bearing as well. But sometimes they can get stuck a little bit in there. But this worked really well. Or if you have a big socket, you can use that as well. So what's nice about these is same thing, you can use it to install your seal, and you're only really hitting the metal part evenly rather than, you know, going around. So and honestly, I don't think you have to do this. That's just something I like to do. I just like to put a little small coating of RTV. Most of the time the seal's not going to leak around the edge on the outside here, because that's driven in there pretty tight, but why not be extra cautious, right? So that's right in there. Probably the first thing we should have checked before any of this is make sure the shaft is the right one. That's happened to me before, where I didn't even really kind of looked at it next to it. I was like, okay, it looks similar. And then once I pushed it in, it was already hitting inside and it was sticking out a couple inches. So I guess, okay, that looks the right length. Put it this way, right length there. So notice here, I noticed the factory ones a lot of times have this little O-ring where that C-clip goes. And I think they just put it on there because it makes it kind of tighter. So I just transfer it to the new one, or you can get a new little O-ring, but if you don't do that, it's no big deal. I'm gonna go inside in the press and show you how to push the studs in. Make sure that they're the right thread, which they are. Okay, now this is a little bit different. Not everyone's gonna have a shop press. You can get your studs, if you take them to a shop, they may, you know, do it for you for, I don't know, maybe 20 bucks or something. Or you can, you know, hit them with a hammer. That would work since you have the shaft out. There's also a little tool that you can buy. You put them in there, and then it's kind of like a bearing, a nut, and you force them in. I think I've done a video of doing it in the car that way. So there's different ways if you do have a shop press, or if you want to get it done somewhere. This is going to be kind of the process. So I'm going to just put a stud in here, and then you want to put a socket, something that's gonna be you want a socket that the stud's gonna go through, and just be mindful where you place it, because if you place the socket right at the edge, it will mess up your threads when you're pushing it down. So don't ask me how I know that. So I'm just gonna make sure that it's right at the center. What's nice here is it's just pushing the force right on the stud, pushing it up. Oops. And you should be able to know when it's all the way up, because it's going to get really tight. Like now it's tight pushing up. You know, because it's forcing the stud in, but it still goes through. And you can back it up and just kind of check. Is everything going good? So it looks like it's all the way seated down. And so that's how you put in your stud this way. So I'm just gonna do the other 4 and we will put it back in the car. Okay, so we got our studs pressed in. Now I'm just gonna put a little bit of grease there on the seal, a little bit here on the shaft where the bearing's gonna ride, and then just a little bit here at the end. Makes it easier for these splines to go in. That's probably not necessary, but that's just what I'm gonna do. And so same thing when you're putting this back in there, don't let this splines ride on that seal. So make sure you put your hand there so it's off the seal and push it in. Once you get to the end over there, you're gonna have to tilt the shaft so it goes into the carrier, and then once in there, you know, just kind of guide it in, turn it only a little and go all the way, so that way we can go in there and put that C-clip in. I'm gonna try to show you in here. Hopefully the camera can get you can see where the shaft is sticking out. So I'm gonna try to put this C-clip in there, like so, and then push it back out. You see now it's in there. That C-clip's not gonna fall out technically. And then the next step is to put the pin back in there, and it should slide right in. So before doing that, I'm just gonna clean the bolt here a little bit and put some thread locker. That way, as I put it in there, I can push it in and tighten it. Okay, let's try this again. Gonna grab my bolt with the thread locker. There we go. Now this bolt was pretty tight, but again, don't go crazy bananas in it. It's a really small bolt, so you don't want to break it or strip it. So that's pretty good. It has the thread locker, so that'll be tight. So at this point, really you just gotta clean the surface. So all this gasket material, RTV, I'm gonna clean it out, make sure none of that stuff goes in there. Same with the cover. I'm gonna clean that out really good with the knife, and then we'll apply some RTV, both sides, gasket, put it back together. So I'm not gonna bore you with cleaning it, but just, you know, get a razor blade, clean all this out, use some brake cleaner. I'm gonna put the thread chaser just to clean the holes, and then I'll also do it on the bolts just to make sure they're really clean, and then put this all back together. Once you do that as well, you can go back and, you know, we'll start putting back the brake rotor, caliper, the wheel, everything like that. So I'm gonna clean this, then I'll come back and show you before we install the cover. Okay, went ahead and cleaned up everything, cover and the rear end, chase the threads and everything. So what I'm gonna do is I have the gasket here that came with the kit. Just standard paper gasket. Really, the main thing I like doing is I'm gonna do a bead of RTV, spread it out a little bit, and then put the gasket, and then put another bead on top of the gasket, let it spread it out, let it sit just a little bit, and then put it on the rear end. So. This is what I always done on the rear ends, and knock on wood, they haven't leaked on me. So some people like doing only RTB, some people like doing only the gasket, you know. I guess that's just preference. So, but I do like to kind of spread it out with my finger a little bit, just make it a little even. And sometimes your covers are a little bit warped, and so if you notice it keeps leaking or anything, you can always just put a thicker bead of silicone, let it sit a little bit longer before tying it so it doesn't squeeze it out mostly, and then do it that way. But I always like to put a gasket in between. So. So with that on there, I'll go ahead and lay the gasket, and I'll just go around and push it with my hand, just you know, touching the RTV all around. This gasket is okay. The holes line up, but not 100% perfect. So, and then I'm gonna do another bead here on the outside. And then I'll do the same thing, so I'll get my finger and just spread it out. And then I'm just gonna give it a few minutes. Looks like the ants are over here trying to crash my party. So just give them a little brake cleaner. I'm just gonna clean the inside here a little bit with my clean rag, just in case any of the brake cleaner is sitting in here. But pretty much at this point, I'm gonna put this in there, and geez, this thing. I'm just gonna put this in there very lightly. Try only to touch it once you're pretty much lining up. What's nice about cleaning your bolts and your threads is, you know, you can pretty much tighten these up by hand. But pretty much what I'm gonna do, you know, I just kind of move it up and down a little bit. I'll put all the bolts here by hand. And then I'll wait probably about 10 minutes before I give them a little snug. And then I'll wait another, I would say probably another, and I'll look up the torque specs, but I'll wait another like 8 minutes or so before I actually torque them, just to give enough time to the RTV to kind of flash dry a little bit. If I tighten it right now, it's pretty much gonna squeeze all of it out. So I want some to stay in between to make a better seal. And again, that's just how I like to do it. I don't know if that's the right way or anything. You can do it either way you want, but that's what we're gonna do here. So, and I'll probably get some paint and paint this little area where it was hit at some point, and it's just the metal showing there. That way it doesn't get rusted. I think at some point I'll get like a nice cover for this, but I'm gonna try not to change that oil for a while, since this is the second time that I've done that. So. Alright, so these are just literally hand tightened. I'm just gonna keep it about 10 minutes. Come by and just lightly snug them. I'll look up the torque spec and then give it another like 8 minutes and then do the final torque down. I went ahead and just put the tire back on and everything. It's been probably a little bit over 10 minutes, but I'm just gonna snug these up So the torque spec on these is between 20-25 foot-pounds. So I'm just lightly tying them right now. Okay, so just a light tying. I'll wait another like 8 minutes, and then I'll do about about half of that, so about 12 foot-pounds, and then I'll just wait. Well, I'll probably just do 120, all of them, not 120, 12 foot-pounds, and then I'll do about 23 just in between the torque specs there, and that's it. After that, you just want to fill it with oil. These take approximately almost 3 quarts if you're gonna fill it, unless you have like a little pump, which I do somewhere, but these work really well. This rear ends take 75-140, which is full synthetic, but if you go to Walmart, they have these, they're like a bag. It works really well because you can put it in there even if there's stuff, your exhaust is on the way, and then you can squeeze it to fill it. The hard part with the plastic bottles is, one, you can't, you know, maneuver them around, but second, to put it in there, sometimes you can't tilt it all the way up and you can't squeeze them that easy. So these work really well. You can get all the oil out of them, and at least, you know, you can buy one and then just once you're done, get the other quarts and put them in here and use these. So so you need about 3 of these. On the 8.8 limit slip, there's friction modifier that you can add. So it's supposed to be that the full synthetic 75-140 already has the additives. It says right here, contains limited slip additives, so you shouldn't need that extra additive. I guess you can put that on there if you want. It's like a little bottle. It's called like a friction modifier or something like that. So that's pretty much it as far as replacing an axle shaft, or if you're doing the seal on the wheel. Normally if your seal is bad, it's because maybe the bearing is messed up, or, you know, the shaft is worn out. So just check all that because you have everything off. So but if you're doing the seals, it's the same process. You have to take out the shaft out and everything. So I'm just gonna fill, you know, time these in a little bit, fill the oil, and that's gonna be for this part. There's probably other things I have to do to the car because we're getting it ready, right? So mostly covering all the holes and cracks so that, you know, a lot of air doesn't come inside and fumes and all that. So let me finish that up and then we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, so the other thing that we did to get the car ready, so I went ahead and sanded back here and kind of painted different colors just so it looks, well, there's not holes there, and then smooth this out and just spray some different colors so it kind of looks similar to what it was. And right over here, but I went ahead and brushed some clear coat all over it so it just makes it look shiny. Where there's some blue paint, it actually looks really nice, metallic you can see, maybe the camera can pick it up, but like this area here. But even the rust looks darker, makes it look cooler. So now it's just drying, and for the clear coat I just mixed it and did it with the brush, nothing special. So get that in there. Really the next thing that I'm gonna do is just on the interior put the inside quarter covers in there, and that wire cover the cracks, and that's pretty much it. It's gonna be ready for some miles. But overall I think that's it for this video. There's still quite a bit more work, but I'll do another video on it. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, comments, leave them below. Yes, you can brush some clear coat on there and it looks pretty good. Would I do that to a car that's maybe like a show car? Probably not, but something like this, hey, it's perfect because even the paint is really rough. So anyway, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.